Thank you for joining us today. My name is Dennis O'Keefe. I'm in the sales and marketing department in Workful. And today we're going to talk about Workful Pro, specifically about how you can manage your payroll clients as well as your own office with our Workful Pro system. All right, so this webinar is called First Look at Workful Pro. If you watched or attended the webinar series from last week, it was more geared towards a business owner and how a single company would operate using the Workful payroll and employee management system. Today, though, we're going to be focused on what it would look like for a payroll professional or a tax preparer who also does payroll on the side to use Workful to manage your clients. And ultimately, the value propositions we want to deliver to you is specifically for the tax preparers is we want to save you time during and around tax season. So think January year-end forms, April quarter one forms, and all the payments that need to occur in between those two time slots. And then anybody doing corporate returns towards the end of the year. Payroll is the last thing you want to get bothered with. So the main value proposition we're looking to deliver to you all is based around saving you time during those crucial periods for your business. So let's kick it off. All right, so today, the first section we're going to cover is automated tax filing. It's the area that we get probably the most questions about. So I want to make sure we cover that for you thoroughly. Up next would be managing your clients in Workful Pro. We'll look at managing your clients with Workful Pro, and that'll include setting up a new client with Workful Payroll, as well as interacting with your existing client base. And then we'll talk about some settings that I think will help you get the most out of it. Before the payroll run, we'll do a quick demo of the Workful Pro dashboard and then enter into the payroll run portion of this presentation, during which we'll talk about all the ways you can handle your client's payroll, including real-time payroll, after-the-fact payroll, and then some edge cases that I'm sure you've all experienced before. And then we'll have about a minute or two at the end to cover a few random things that I think will be important to you. But ultimately, I feel like the content in this is going to provide a lot of value to you, and I look forward to hearing your feedback afterwards. So first up is the automated tax filing part of the program. And really, we're just going to talk process. We're not actually going to view anything, but we're just going to go over some details that I think are important to know as you're getting started. So first off, how does it work? So Workful is, if you opt into what we call full service payroll or automated tax filing, Workful is technically authorized as the reporting agent for you and your clients. And that means if we're handling the taxes for your actual company, then you would sign an 8655 authorizing us to the IRS to file your payroll returns as well as make payments on your behalf. And then each of your clients who opted into that program would also sign an 8655, giving us authorization to handle their tax filing. And then once the setup portion is out of the way it works is whenever you run payroll in Workful for your clients, what we do is capture all the tax liability for the state agencies, so state unemployment insurance and withholding, as well as your 941 deposits. We're going to collect those every time you run payroll, whether that's weekly, biweekly, monthly. And then when the payments are due, we will process those transactions and that is the tax payments. And when the forms are due, we will file them as well. So essentially, your role in this will be running payroll. And if you're running direct deposit, I'll show you what that looks like later, but essentially you're logging in every week or every 2 weeks, hitting a couple buttons, sending out the paychecks, and then we take it from there. So really alleviates a lot of the drag on processing payroll for clients. Just a quick screenshot of what the setup process looks like. So anytime you onboard a new client, there's going to be this little onboarding wizard that you go through that will really kind of handhold you through the setup process. So you can see here, the first two things you have to do are add the employees, set the company pay schedule, so whether they're weekly or biweekly, and then the first check date. Then after that, we collect bank account information, and that's either going to be for processing direct deposits or making the tax payments. So we'll draft all the funds for a client out of that checking account. And then you'll enter the federal tax info, so the EIN and their deposit schedule, as well as the company name and address. And then after that, depending on which state you're in, there will be some state tax info for withholding numbers, unemployment insurance numbers, and assessment rates. And I know some of the states are a little bit more nuanced. So depending on what state you're in, we'll have the fields there for you to fill out the appropriate info. And that is it. So now what we're going to do is move on to managing clients. And this will be pretty brief. We're just going to take a look at some important areas to kind of consider before you get started. And then we'll take a look at the actual dashboard. So up first, so what is Workful Pro? And maybe I should have started the presentation with this, but Workful Pro is it's a platform where you can manage all your payroll clients from a single dashboard. And like I said before, the feature we get the most positive feedback on is the automated tax filing. Beyond that, we've got the ability for you to have, if you have employees in your office who help manage payroll customers, you can add them as sub-pros and limit their access to specific clients. An additional feature is that you can also grant your clients access. So this would be important for a couple different scenarios. One would be if you have your clients processing payroll themselves, you can grant them admin access to do that. In which case you would be there to oversee it if they had any issues and help with any tax questions. But essentially that would be a real hands-off way for you to manage your payroll customers. And if you do that, they would be able to take advantage of some of the employee tooling, like the integrated timesheets and PTO tracking. We've got a couple others like expense reports, things that may or may not be important to you depending on what your business model is currently, but are things that are at your disposal if you would like to offer them to your clients. And then finally, I thought this was important given the audience, is that we integrate with QuickBooks Online. So if you are using QuickBooks Online to manage your payroll customers, your payroll customers bookkeeping, or if you just know that a lot of your clients use QuickBooks Online, you'd be able to sync up Workful with their bookkeeping. We also have Workful Books that I'm sure some of you are familiar with. And we would be able to sync with that program as well. There's a little process to making that happen, but you let us know you want to do it and we will help facilitate. So I thought it would be important to cover a couple questions. If you haven't set up Workful Pro before, or if you are not currently offering payroll to your customers, a couple things to consider is Do you want to handle tax filing? So the cases in which this would be yes, might be if you were concerned about your clients or yourself having the cash flow to be able to cover tax payments every time you run payroll. If that's the case, then you would say yes, you probably want to handle tax filing yourself, so you can collect those funds and make those payments at your discretion. Up next, do you want your customers to pay the software fees? So we've got the option for you to pay the software fees. We've got the option for your clients to log in and put their own card on file. The only catch there is that they would also have access to all of the other administrative properties in the program. So, again, depending on what level of service you're providing your customer, that's a question you want to have an answer to before you get started. And then do you want your clients to access Workful? And what I mean by that is, do you want them to have their employees set up Workful accounts where they can use our timesheet system and all the other employee tools? And again, that's all included in the fees. So if you want to add a little value to their lives and maybe increase the fees you're charging them, I think that's a pretty solid option. And we've also gotten good feedback around that, primarily around the integrated timesheets. So you're not having to collect timesheets from your clients every time you run payroll. So this is important. When you're setting up a customer in Workful, it's gonna go through a little 3-step process. And on step 2, it's going to ask for the company owner's information. So you'll put in their first and last name. And then if you are going to have them access Workful, you're going to want to put in their information for the contact phone and contact email address. However, if you do not want them to access Workful, I would advise you to use the email address 123@workful.com. And what that does is that ensures that we will not send that client an invite to set up a login credential. Okay, so now what I want to do is pull up a Workful Pro test company. Okay, so what we're looking at here is my personal Workful Pro account. So I've got a list of about 15 to 20 payroll clients that I fictitiously handle payroll for. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of the dashboard so you kind of know what's going on here. On the top left, you've got the feature to add clients. So the primary funnel for getting your clients in would be to select the create option. And what that's going to do is drop you into that 3-step wizard that we talked about just a moment ago, where you'll fill out the company information, so the company name and address. Then on step 2, you'll fill out their client's info, so that would be the business owner. And that's where you'll indicate that they are going to or are not going to be able to access the program. And then step 3 is just, it's got the information listed out. You're going to verify that it's accurate. And when you hit create, it's going to dump you right here on the dashboard, and they will be added to your company list. Up next, you've got a list of clients who you invited to join Workful. So it's going to have anybody who, when you created the company, you put their personal email in there. They're going to get an email that says, so-and-so invited you to create a Workful account so that they can process your payroll for you. And then it'll have some instructions on how to do that. If, for whatever reason, they do not set it up, you can send them a little reminder. And maybe you got their email wrong, so you got to make an edit there. So we're going to go ahead and send that email. The third tab here is your Workful Pros. So this would be Typically, any employees that you have that are that work for you in your tax office or in your accounting firm, who are going to assist with managing payroll, our clients' payroll accounts. So you can see I've got Jack Dawson and Kelly Smith here, and you'll also notice that each of them only has access to specific companies on my company list. And if you ever had to let one go or one quits or what have you, you can go into these companies and remove access from that person so they wouldn't be able to do anything nefarious. Now, inviting them is pretty simple. You're going to put in their name and their email address, and they're going to get an invite that says, so-and-so Workful Pro invited you to set up a Workful Pro account so that you can help manage your payroll clients. Up top here, we've got a quick search bar in case you've got a really long list of customers. You can type in a couple letters and it'll pull up their company name. If you select more, there's a couple important items to notice here. Number one, looking at the Workful Pros, you can see that Jack Dawson has access to Dennis's Barbecue. And if I wanted to add or remove a pro, I would hit that Edit Pro. I can take Jack off. I can add Kelly to it very easily. Up next, you see that the client, who is Dennis O'Keefe, he never created his username and password, so I can quickly resend an invite by clicking here. Or if it's unimportant for him to access, if I just did that because he may want to at some point, it's fine that he never does access. And then right here, you can see the last time your client accessed in case you did grant their login. Now, probably the most important part of this section here is the control of billing. So you can see that I've got it to where it says you have control of billing. That means that I have control of billing, so that when I log into this company, I see all the subscription information. I can put my card on file. Heck, I can put their card on file, but I'm the one that handles all that interaction. If you toggle this to owner has control, then Dennis here would have to set up his username and password to be able to log in and put his credit card on file. It's a very important thing to pay attention to there. And then lastly, just navigating in and out of companies is as simple as clicking on the company name. It's going to drop us into that company's dashboard. See, this one's still getting set up. And then from here, you can manage employees. You can run their payroll. You can look at historical information, check out their payroll tax forms. We'll take a little closer look at this when we do the payroll run demo. Up next is the payroll run. And if you've ever run payroll before in other products, this will look like a walk in the park. The three types of payroll run that we offer are just your regular payroll run. What's significant about that is that it's tied to a company pay schedule. So every time you run payroll, the next time you log in, the program is going to be updated to the next payroll opportunity, which if it's weekly, it'll be the following week. Bi-weekly, it'll be 2 weeks out. But it keeps you from having to keep track of when payday is, what the pay period dates are. You just log in and hit a button, and it's going to carry you forward through the year. The second type is the off-cycle payroll run. What's significant here is that it allows you a lot more autonomy, so you can set the pay schedule date however you want every time you run payroll. You can pay one employee, you can pay 10 employees. You can manage the deductions and the withholdings a lot more granularly, whereas with the regular payroll run, that's all preset. So the off-cycle payroll run just gives you a lot more flexibility, which with most of your clients is probably not a big deal, but I know some of you have clients that have adjustments they have to make every payroll run. Up next, you've got contractor payroll run, and that is a really simple two-step process where you can print checks or run direct deposit for 1099 contractors. And at the end of the year, what we'll do is add up all those payments to an individual contractor, and we will e-file that 1099 NEC in January. And then I've also listed after the fact payroll here. I know that's an important feature for tax preparers. Through using the off-cycle payroll run, that'll allow you to get a client caught up on a quarter or a month or a whole year if you need to. So let's talk a little bit more about after the fact payroll. I'm actually going to look at this. We'll take a look at this in just a moment, so I'm not going to go through this entire slide, but the important thing to note is that in the regular payroll run, you can't edit the date of the check. The check date is the day you run payroll. Versus the off-cycle payroll run, you can edit that check date at the beginning of the payroll run, so that if you're doing payrolls in the past, like it's November now, if you have to do October payroll, you will be able to set those dates using the off-cycle payroll run. All right, so this is a test company. Front and center here on the dashboard, and this is what it'll look like every time you log into one of your clients' companies. You've got the payroll feature front and center. It's got the current pay period, date range, and information. And if you have your company on a direct deposit, it's also going to have the day that you have to run payroll in order for those employees to get paid on time. That'll be listed right here, current pay period info. On the right-hand side, you've got your prior payroll runs. You can click on any of these and have all the paychecks listed out. And then you'll have a full summary at the bottom of the page. You can download that to PDF and view it or email it out to your clients. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to run payroll for this test company. I'm going to hit that green button. And it's going to take me into the regular payroll run for 11/12 to 11/27. You can see that the pay date is going to be the 26th. And it's going to have the date range for the pay period right here. So up first, we've got Ashley. She is a salaried employee. So we've got the gross pay listed here. If you had any additional earnings, like a bonus or a commission, that would be listed here. I'm sorry, the commission's actually out on the payroll run. If you have a employee, or if you have a restaurant or a client who owns a restaurant, you'll also have to be able to record cash tips reporting and tips included in the check. You can click on any of these inputs and type in that information to make sure that they are properly taxed and everything is properly accounted for. Up next, we've got an hourly employee. And what you'll notice here is that these hours were filled in before we even got to this page. And the reason is Dennis here is actually using the Workful timesheet system. So he's logging in and clocking in and out every day. And when your client's employees do that, the payroll run is going to sync up with those timesheets. So when you go to run payroll, you're not going to have to get any data from them. You're not going to have to type anything in. It's going to have their hours pre-listed here. And if there are edits that you need to make, like maybe Dennis was not supposed to work all that overtime, and you know for a fact from his boss that he didn't, you can zero that out. Or if you know he was supposed to have 5 hours overtime, you can do that on the fly. Again, you can see where you have the ability to plug in bonuses, commissions on the fly, reimbursements. So this would be a non-taxable reimbursement to an employee. And again, if your clients are using the employee features, this employee may submit an expense report and have it automatically reimbursed in the payroll run. So one of the more convenient features in the product. So for the rest of these guys, they're not using the timesheet. So what you'll have to do is go ahead and manually type in their hours. Pretty simple process. Any employees that are salaried, again, will be automatically filled out. Like Shane here gets $1,100 a week, no hours to plug in for him. We know that Stanley's got 26. Stephanie's on a salary. Steven, there we go. Oh, we got another Steven. And just like that, I filled out all the hours for a company with I didn't count, but about 12 active employees. The second step is the time off. So if you have clients who, again, are using all the employee tools, we also offer PTO. So they'd be able to track their employees' time off. And if those hours are approved before you run payroll, they're going to populate here in the hours. And if not, and if you are handling this for your client, you can plug them in on the fly. If you know Ashley took her 8 hours that week, you can type it in there. Oh, forgot to pick the policy. There we go. Okay, so now we've got the payroll summary. So each employee line has the net amount you're paying out to that employee. You've got their withholdings and deductions, and then you've got the company contributions to each employee and how that breaks out here. So what I recommend doing is you download the full summary, and what we are going to do is generate a PDF that you can populate in another tab. Let me zoom in here. So at this point, what I recommend is just giving it a once over, making sure everything looks correct. This is also something you can email out to the client. It gives you the ability to take a real granular look at each employee's pay stub to make sure there aren't any issues there. And then if everything looks good, what we're going to do is hit submit payroll. So one thing to note here is that if you've got a client who's on direct deposit, what this is going to do is trigger the ACH process. We're going to draft the funds from your client's business checking account and pay them out to each of these employees. Since this company is on printed checks, as you can see here under each employee's name, when I hit submit payroll, what we will do is generate a list of checks, and we'll produce a PDF that we'll download and open that up. It'll produce a series of PDFs that you can print out on Checkstock. Now, we've got a Checkstock partner that sells checks extremely inexpensively called Checks for Less. I'll show you a link to that at the end, and it'll also be in the notes on this YouTube video. But essentially, you purchase checks from this company, or if you already have checks, there's a chance they'll be compatible with this program. But the check stock will have the company's information, the bank account routing information. When you hit print, it's going to print each of these out, and then you'll be able to hand them to the employees. So we're going to say, since we printed them out, everything looked good, we're going to hit close. And congratulations, you did it. You ran payroll. And then when we go back out to the dashboard, you'll see that the pay period has updated to next week. So next week, when I come in to run payroll, we're going to be ready to roll. I'll pull this back up. When you get to the last step of the payroll run, I should have pointed out that we give you the tax liability totals and we're going to pull all those balances. If you're set up for full service payroll, for automated tax filing, we are going to collect all those balances for your federal and state agencies, and we're going to make those tax deposits whenever they're due. The net pay is going to go out to the employees, but the total wages are going to be pooled at that time, whether you're doing checks or direct deposit. And I'll rephrase that. If you're printing checks, all we're going to pool is a tax liability. If you're running direct deposit, we're going to pull that entire wages paid amount. All right, so that was for real-time payroll. Now let's take a look at after the fact payroll. So in order to do that, to process an off-cycle payroll run, I'm going to go over here to the payroll feature on the left-hand menu. You'll see I've got a regular payroll run, and you can see these dates have updated here as well. And below that, I've got off-cycle payroll run and contractor payroll run. So on the off-cycle, which is what I would anticipate would be an important feature for you all, is that you can change this pay date. So let's say I've got to process payroll for quarter 2, and I'm going to make sure that the check date is in that quarter. I'm going to pick June 30th. We're going to have a little pop-up that says, hold on a second, make sure that you are recording a previous payroll. And one of the important things to note here is that this won't produce checks. This will simply record that a payroll occurred. And then in the advanced settings, you can calculate the taxes based on a flat 22% or based on a pay frequency. And then you can pick the pay frequency to make sure it matches up with the taxes. You can set the pay period start and end date. So again, we're recording a payroll back in Q2, and maybe it's for the entire month of June. So that's how we'll do that, and that will make sure that all the record keeping is accurate, all the taxes are accurate, so on and so forth. So another thing to note is that any salaried employees will be blank, and you will actually fill out the salary manually. If there are any additional earnings, you'd hit that additional earnings button and plug them in. Same thing with these guys. This would not sync up with the time clock. You would actually be plugging in those hours for the whole pay period or for the month or whatever the date range is that you chose. And maybe this is a feature I should have shown you already. We're going to skip a few of these guys because they don't need to get any paychecks for that month. Maybe it's a seasonal company, or maybe you'd forgotten to run payroll for a couple folks. So what you wanted to do is go in and only process for the ones who were missed. We're going to skip over the time off. And then as I noted during the slideshow earlier, you have the ability now to edit and update any withholdings or deductions for each of these employees. So let's say she was not supposed to have a garnishment during that time period. You can remove that. Maybe she wanted to, or maybe she had additional contributions to her 401k. We're going to recalc that net pay. Perhaps she said, I want to withhold an extra $1,200 in federal taxes because I'm way behind. Or if you're doing after the fact and you know the net amount and then you need to adjust the taxes to match that net amount, you can do that. All right, everything looks good. So we're going to save and continue. Notice again, it only has the 2 employees that we kept included in this pay period. And then I'm going to submit payroll. And note there were no checks produced. All we did was record a prior payroll. So that is if you were doing any after the fact payroll, or if you were getting a client caught up on their payroll, this would be the way to do it. Okay, a couple other things to note while we're in this company, and then we're going to jump back out to that slideshow and finish up one more slide and be done for the day. But we've got reports that I think will be important to you. And the reports you can pull payroll deductions reports, which may be important for paying for retirement accounts or transferring money to retirement accounts, for keeping track of health insurance premiums. If you offer any ben admin to your clients, this would be an important feature for you. Or if your clients request a report to give to their ben admin company, you'd be able to produce it here. You've got your payroll history. So this would be that register report for each payroll that you've run. And then you've got the company payroll register report, which would give you whatever date range you plug in. Again, any of these are not, again, I hadn't said this yet, but any of these are reports that you can export to multiple file formats. What I'd likely think you would do is a PDF or an Excel. Let's see. Below that, other ones that I think would be important to you are the tax liability, so you can know exactly how much taxes were or are going to be. And then, since we pointed it out earlier, and since we're about to talk about it again, we've got a QuickBooks Online integration, and you can see that this particular account is synced up. The last time it synced was just a moment ago. The reason it did that is because we process payroll. So every time you process payroll, it's going to send that data over to QuickBooks so that the profit and loss, and the register, and everything will be accurate in the books. All right, just to run through a few more things, a couple things that we noted earlier in the presentation and in the slideshow is that we sync with your QuickBooks account. We also offer a sync with Workful Books, which is a low cost and simple bookkeeping product. Let us know if you're already using Workful Books and would like to add payroll clients. We can show you how to sync that up. If you are not currently using Workful Books and want to learn more about that, give us a call or send us an email to support@workful.com, and we can get you some collateral with info around that. Checked for Less is our checks partner. And again, they offer extremely low cost check stock that you can order for yourself and for your clients. And that is all. I really appreciate you joining us for this webinar. If you're interested in setting up a Workful Pro account, you'll go to workful.com. And at the very bottom of the page, there's a link to Workful Pro, or you can type in workful.com/Workful Pro, and that'll get you to the Workful Pro page to set up a pro account. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. I'm going to have this on YouTube later on today, and I'll email it out to each of you. Please let us know if you have any feedback or have any questions that you would that you'd like answered. And we look forward to hopefully working with you in the future. Have a great day.